Hello everyone, welcome to today's lecture. In today's lecture we are going to learn about application layer protocol, which is a HTTP. I hope you all heard the word HTTP. So HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So with the help of this protocol, information of the particular website is exchanged between the web server and web browser. So if you want to communicate over the internet, the main protocol is the HTTP protocol. Suppose you are writing one website, the google.com, www.google.com or anything else. When you press the enter, automatically one keyword is resides before the name of that website, which is HTTP or HTTPS. Yes, so that is called the protocol. When you request the data, request some website to the server, that is happened with the help of HTTP. That is why that keyword is reside before that before the name of that website. So it is a very important protocol. This is also called the communication protocol. So it is by using that protocol we can communicate over the internet. As the name is a hypertext transfer protocol. We all know the name of HTML is hypertext markup languages. So in our previous time, HTTP is only used to retrieve the HTML pages, but nowadays we can retrieve anything as a video, image. Yes, we can retrieve anything from net with the HTTP protocol. That is why at that time the name is taken as hypertext transfer protocol, because it only retrieve the HTML pages. The main function of HTTP is to access the data on the World Wide Web. This protocol can access the data in various forms such as plain text, hypertext, audio, video, etc. HTTP follows the client-server protocol, which means the client or the web browser, it only has a role of client, and the server who are reside outside the region or outside our the PC, that server are responsible for serving the services. Here we cannot here if we are searching anything on our browser, then we can only be the client. Yes, that is not happened any time that we are serving a request. Yes, so mainly the browser are only the clients, and the server who are serving the data are the servers. Yes, there are one client. Suppose I am connecting over the internet, so I am become the client. So at that time I am only the client, but at that same time multiple servers are there. Suppose you are requesting some Facebook pages, some Facebook website. Suppose you are requesting one Facebook website, and Facebook have a multiple servers. Each servers are reside on different areas. Yes, so suppose your request is going on one server, but that server is down. So that server is down, that is why it is redirect to the other server, and will get the our requested pages. There are multiple servers are there because for the load sharing. Yes, so suppose there are 100 requests going on one server, and there are 4 servers. So the request is divided into 25 slots, then by load can be distributed. So the HTTP protocol follows the client server protocol. The client only requests the content with the help of HTTP protocol, and server respond the requested content with the help of HTTP protocols. HTTP defines the structure of these messages and how web client, web server exchange the messages. We know what is a protocol. Protocol is a set of rules that has to follow if you want to communicate over the internet. So here HTTP is also a protocol for communicating or exchanging the messages over the internet. So this is one web server and there is one web client. So client request a content with the HTTP protocol, and server also responds a HTTP response. Next is what is a client? So it is a browser that requests, receives and display web objects, for example PC, mobile, laptop, etc. What is a server? Then a web server sends object in response to this request. It has a lot of data stored in its memory, for example Apache web server. So suppose this is a web browser, this is a web server, and this is another web browser on the phone. Yes, so one client requests a content which is with the help of HTTP protocol, so it is called the HTTP request. Client gives a response to that server. Also at that same time, when another client requests for content, and the server will give the response to that client. So that is simultaneously happen. There are lakhs of client requesting some data at the same time, and at the same time server responds to each and every one, and that is happened due to the multiple sequence or connection of servers. A client initiates a TCP connection. It means that it creates a socket. Socket means a door for the communication. So TCP connection means it creates a door for the communication. A server accepts a TCP connection from the client. Server accepts the connection. After connection is established, now we are requesting, suppose we are requesting a friend request on the Facebook. So this is creating the connection, and at the other side will accept your request. So now the connection is created. Now you can communicate with each other. Yes, so this is how network communication is done. HTTP messages exchange between the browser, which is HTTP client, and web server, which is a HTTP server. Yes, so now messages are exchanged. HTTP is a stateless protocol. Server maintains no information about the past client request. Stateless means I will explain with one example. That suppose this is one tab, this is another tab, now this is the third tab. On third tab I will explain. On third tab I will open another website. Yes, so the stateless means the data on this website will not interfere in the data in the other website which is open in the another browser. So that is the core meaning of statelessness. Stateless means it will not contain any state information. Yes, so that is the meaning of stateless. In HTTP, server sends the file requested to the client without storing any state information about the client. So it may happen that same client may ask the same information repeatedly to the server, and the server would not even understand it. So it will keep resending those files. Yes, every time when you reload the website, server every time sends a new content. Suppose this is one website towards a datascientist.com. Yes, this is already open in my browser. I will already request it, and server gives me this data. Now if I refresh this website, so at that time when I refresh the website, the request is gone through the HTTP protocol to the server. Server again sent this website to the same client. Yes, so this is happened every time. So that is one disadvantage of stateless product. That is one disadvantages of HTTP is a stateless, but it has some. It also has some advantages of being stateless, because if you are working on one important content on the internet, so if someone is watching on your content, then after some time if you reload that data, that connection is break, so it is more secure. So that is one benefit of stateless of HTTP protocol. HTTP connection are of two types, which is persistent HTTP and non-persistent HTTP. So let's understand what is it. So in the client server communication, client make a series of requests to the server responding to each of the requests. Yes, so series of requests may be made back to back or periodically at a regular time interval. So application developer needs to make an important decision. Should each request or response pair to be sent over a separate TCP connection, or should all these requests and corresponding responses be sent over the same TCP connection? So it means that if we are requesting content back to back repeatedly to the server, so the question arises in currently a server, every time server serves as a new connection or a new client, and every time it gives a response. Yes, every time it gives a response to the client as a new client. But the question rises, should each request response pair to be sent over the separate TCP connection? Like can server signs each request as a separate connection every time it creates a connection and then send the data, or should all of these requests and corresponding response be sent over the same TCP connection? Yes, so server waits for multiple requests, and when some numbers of requests is created, after that server will create the connection and then send the response. So these are two main questions. So let's understand. First is a non-persistence HTTP. So a non-persistent connection is closed after the server sends the request object to the client. So the connection is used exactly for a one request and one response. For downloading multiple objects, it requires a multiple connections. Suppose we are on the same site. If I want to download 15 songs from one site, yes. So every time when I download a new song, every time server creates a new connection, then download. Server create a new connection and download. So for 15 file, it creates a 15 multiple connection and close the 15 multiple connection. So non-persistent connection are default mode are HTTP 1.0, means every time it creates a one-to-one connection. For every request, it create a connection and then close it. Next request, it create a connection and close it. So that is called the non-persistent HTTP. For example, transferring a web page from server to client, web consists of a base HTML file and 10 JPG images. So it sends all the content one time, then creates a new connection. So total contents are 10 JPG images and one web page. So 11 objects are reside in the server. So every 11 time connection is created. Suppose let's understand with the example. Suppose this is the URL of some school. Now now the next concept is how we can calculate the time, how much time is taken to solve the multiple requests. So suppose this is one URL and this is a time field. Now first HTTP client initiate a TCP connection to the HTTP server at www.someschool.edu.on port number 18. So I'll write this link on my browser and request for the content. Now on the server side, server create the connection and notify the client. So now the connection is established. Yes, so now this is connection. After establishing the connection, our client requests a message into a TCP connection socket. Message indicates that client wants some object. Suppose the connection is created. Now I request for this URL. So now I request one web page like some department/home.index. So this request is gone to the server with the help of HTTP protocol. Server receives the request, forms response message containing requested object and send message into its socket. With the help of socket, it sends request to the client and immediately server close the TCP connection. Now on the client side, client receives the response message containing HTML file, display HTML file and find 10 reference JPEG images that he requested. So now the data is shown in the browser. And now if a client requests a new data, so every time client requests for the connection, server create the connection. Now client requests for data, server respond to the data, close the connection, and so on the client side the data will be displayed. So this process every time is repeated on the non-persistence HTTP protocol. So how we can calculate the response time? So response time is called the round trip time, a time for a small packet to travel from client to server and vice versa. So HTTP response time is calculated on RTT. So 1 RTT to initiate TCP connection, 1 RTT for HTTP request, and first few bytes of HTTP response to return. So file transmission rates. So now first request for the connection, and after the connection is created, that is called the first RTT, 1 round trip time. After now client requests for the file, and server recreate that file and respond to the server, and file is received. So that time is also called 1 round trip time. So now we have so for one connection, so or for one request, for the one request the response time for the HTTP equals to 2 RTT. Yes, 2 RTT plus file transmission time. So when file is received, so that time is called the file transmission time. So this response time in the non-persistence HTTP for one request is equals to 2 round trip time plus file transmission time. I hope you understand what is a round trip time. Round trip time means one loop. Suppose I started running from this point and run one round and come back to this point. So this point is so this one round is called the 1 round trip time. So that is some basic definition. So in the network point of view, when we request some connection and the server respond to that connection, so that time is called the 1 round trip. So in the persistence HTTP, server leaves the TCP connection open for sending responses. Subsequent HTTP messages between same client and server sent over, and server sent over the open connection. The server closes the connection only when it is not used for a certain configurable amount of time. So it requires a little as 1 round trip of time for all the reference objects. With persistence connection, the performance is improved by 20%. Persistent connection are the default mode of for HTTP 1.1. So in the persistence HTTP, what happened that if we request for the content, so at that time connection is established. Yes. Now server waits for some time. For example, it is a fixed time that is decided by the developer. Suppose it is a 10 seconds. So in the suppose it is a 10 minutes. So server open that connection for the 10 minutes. So server so when we request for the new content after the 3 minutes, so for that server will not create a new connection. Server will directly respond to the client. So that is called the session. For one session, server remains open. Server's connection will remain open, and after that server will close that connection. And after that, if we are requesting at 10 o'clock, so the connection is open till the 10:10. After the 10:10, if we are requesting a new content at 10:15 a.m., so now the server will create a new connection for that request, and again remain open for next 10 minutes. So in that 10 minutes, server will not create a new connection. Server will directly send a response to the client. So that is called the persistence HTTP. So in our today's lecture, we have learned what is a HTTP, protocol. Yes, HTTP is a stateless protocol. It is a client server. It follows the client server architecture. It is used for mainly with the help of this protocol, information of particular website is exchanged between web server and web browser. Next is how HTTP request and response will be happen. Now HTTP has two types, non-persistence and persistence. In the non-persistence HTTP, for each request new connection is created and close the connection after the request is served. While in the now next is a round trip time. So the response time for non-persistent HTTP is a 2 round trip time. A persistent HTTP means the server leaves the TCP connection open for some time, and after and the request comes in that time will directly responded for that request is new connection will not created. After the time limit, the new connection is created and also remain open for the decided amount of time. So thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.